Thank you to everyone who is joining us. We have a couple of announcements as everyone is getting logged in. First, we are recording this session and it will be available here in Excel events for the next 30 days and on the Alliance's YouTube channel after that. Secondly, if you would like to ask a question during the session, please make sure and use the chat or Q&A area to the right of the viewing window, or you can turn on your camera and mic if prompted by the speakers. If you'd like to access English or Spanish captions or Spanish audio translation, please use the widget below this viewing screen or use the link that I've dropped in the chat to access them in a separate browser window. Finally, this meeting type is a breakout session, which allows you to turn your mic and cameras on if the speakers prompt you to do so. If you'd rather use the chat and Q&A section in the panel to the right, please feel free to do so throughout the session. And it looks like we're ready to get started, so I'm going to hand it over to our speakers to begin.
All right, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me? All right, so welcome to our presentation, Halal on the Tray, Equitable Access to Maine's Universal School Meals. My name is Hamza. I am the Director of Partnerships at the Halal School Meals Network. And on the screen, you can also see Khadija. She is the project lead and chef, and she'll be here as well at the end to answer any questions you may have. There's Firdaus, our Manager of Marketing and Communications, and Zoe, who you'll hear from soon. She's our School Food Systems Program Manager. And before we begin, we'd like to take a moment to address that talking about food and food insecurity can be challenging because not everybody has the same experience surrounding food, and these experiences are not always positive. With that in mind, Halal School Meals are part of a larger conversation about food access and equity, and they're an important part of that conversation. So we're excited to be here to talk to you about the progress we've made at the Halal School Meals Network. First, I'm going to give you an overview of what our program is. Next, I'll talk quickly about what halal is and why it matters. And lastly, I'll hand it to Zoe to talk about our process and community engagement before we hand it over to Khadija to answer any of your questions. And stay ready because we might even throw some quiz questions at you. All right. So let me begin with an overview of what our program is. So the Halal School Meals Network was created to give Muslim students who observe halal equitable access to Maine's Universal School Meals program. Food service directors noticed that some students were not eating in their cafeterias, and that kicked off the chain of events that led us to where we are now. There's several key pieces to what we do. The first of which is implementing a certified halal program, which means working with food service directors, food service staff, and a third-party certifier to ensure that all of the kitchens and processes meet halal standards for the halal meals. The next important piece of our mission is community education and outreach, so working to build trust in the community and address questions and concerns from our community stakeholders. And the last piece is the ongoing halal food service training and oversight that we provide in conjunction with our third-party certifier, Ifanka. So this includes quarterly audits on all of our halal certified kitchens, and a big part of this is working directly with the kitchen staff to make sure that the systems work for them and their unique needs and keep their workload as light as possible. Our work with the kitchens is really collaborative, and what we found is that kitchens who successfully implement this program often see only a negligible increase in their workload. They're often surprised by that, and we see that as a win-win situation. And beyond the schools themselves, we collaborate with the students along with their parents and families to make this program work. So on that note, I'd like to highlight a few of our key partners. So there's the South Portland School District, all Portland Public Schools, Westbrook School Department, Food Corps Maine, and last but not least, the Islamic Food and Nutrition Council of America, IFANCA, who I'll talk about in a moment. But first, I have a couple questions for you all. The first one is a yes or no question. Do you recognize this symbol? I'll give everybody a moment to answer. All right. Good, yes. So that is the halal symbol. The easiest way to identify halal food items is to look for this writing on the label. It comes in different forms, but if you see halal written on a food label, it is most likely halal. Now, the second question is a little bit more challenging. Which of the items on the list is definitely halal? Alcohol, cheese, bread, or salmon? I'll give you all a moment to answer. All right. Perfect. Yes, the answer is salmon because fish is always halal. In Islam, animals that live on land need a specific slaughter process to be considered permissible, but sea creatures like fish can't be slaughtered that way. They die when they're taken out of the water. So fish like salmon is naturally halal, just like fruits and vegetables. All right. So this is a good segue into talking about the question, what is halal and why does it matter? Halal is just an Arabic word that means lawful or permitted. It's most often used to refer to foods that are permissible for Muslims to consume. Haram, on the other hand, refers to foods that are not permissible, such as pork and alcohol. And on this slide here, you can see food items like gummy bears, bread, and cheese. All of these items could go either way. They could either be halal or haram for Muslims. So I'm going to give you some insight into how you can determine whether something is halal or not. Okay. So the easiest and the safest way to determine if something is halal or not is by looking for the word halal written on the food, which could come in the form of any of these symbols. With that being said, there's also some non-halal code words to look out for. Mono and diglycerides, gelatin, rennet, non-vegetable shortening, enzymes, and lysine, to name a few. And this brings me to my next question for you. So we can see that the ingredients in this cheese are pasteurized sheep's milk, cultures, rennet, and salt. Is it halal? I'll give you a minute to answer. Okay, so no, this one is not halal. It has rennet in it, which is one of the non-halal code words, but it does not have the halal symbol. So on the next slide, how about this cheese? So it has cultured milk, salt, enzymes, and an annetto, or coloring agent. And look closely at the label on this one to determine if it's halal or not. So go ahead and submit your answers. Yes, so it is halal. It actually has the halal logo right above the barcode. So like we talked about before, that's the easiest way to tell. All right, so now that we've seen some of the intricacies of determining whether or not a food is halal, it's a good time to bring up our third-party certifier, IFANCA. IFANCA is a very important member of our team. They help us train food service staff, develop halal flow recommendations for kitchens. They conduct ingredient and recipe review from slaughter to tray. They help inspect the kitchens and develop educational materials for students and staff. And a big part of what they do is providing that ongoing support to our partner kitchens. And maybe most importantly, they provide us with the halal certification label, which helps us build trust in the community, whether it's the students or the parents. Zooming into Maine schools in particular, I want to quickly discuss some statistics that show why this program is so important. The Institute for Social Policy and Understanding found that around 80% of Muslims in the US will not eat if they don't know whether something is halal. In Portland, 57% of students are eligible for free and reduced lunch, and about 10% of the students we surveyed across the three districts do observe a halal diet. That 10% represents a meaningful portion of our student body. And while halal meals are open to everyone, this program ensures that students who rely on halal options can access the nutritious food that they need to stay focused and successful throughout the day. So thank you, everybody. Now I'll hand it over to Zoe for a discussion about our process and community engagement.
Thanks so much, Hamza. Yeah, as Hamza said, my name is Zoe Grodsky. I'm the School Food Systems Manager with the Cumberland County Food Security Council here in Maine, and I work very closely with the Halal School Meals Network. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how we've actually implemented this. Hamza spoke about what halal is, the importance of having access to halal meals in Maine schools, what our certifier does. But I just want to get a little bit into what is our process and how have we really made sure that this is a community-driven initiative through every step of the way, and making sure that we're really meeting the needs of the community that we're living in and working with. So here you can see our process steps, and it's nice to see it all laid out here looking simple because it truly has not been a simple process. We've been working very closely with these school districts for a number of years, I think going on 3 or 4 years now, to make sure that we can implement this program and do it with the community's trust. So the first thing that we really did was to identify the need, find out what is it that students in our area need from school meals and what is prohibiting them. What are the barriers that they're encountering to access Maine's universal school meals? We're really lucky here in Maine that we still have universal school meals. Every student is able to come and get a free meal. But we know that not every student is eating it, and we wanted to figure out why. So we surveyed over 800 students and families in the Portland schools to figure out what their needs and desires were from school meals. As Hamza said, we found out that about 10% of students were observing a halal diet and really wanted to see halal school meals being served, and that would enable them to access. We also heard from many students and families that they wanted to see more culturally diverse recipes on the menu, and they wanted to see those two components partnered together. So we began to work with the staff and really build trust and understanding. For many of the staff, they had never heard the word halal before. They all care so deeply about the students that they're working with and making sure that their needs are met, but it wasn't something that they were familiar with. And so for years now, we've been going into the kitchens, and you can see a picture, tiny little picture there of Khadija working with the food service staff, training them on one of her original recipes. And so we've gone in and done both hands-on training and just sort of more educational training about these concepts to make sure that the staff can serve this food with confidence, that they understand what halal is, and really from the moment they're getting the products in, they're making their ordering decisions to the time that the kids are taking it, putting on their tray, eating it, they feel really confident and can say with certainty, it's halal, and we know what that means, and we know why we're serving it. The next process after we've done some of that initial training was to go through the certification process, which Hamza already spoke about. So working with the Islamic Food and Nutrition Council of America to certify the ingredients that the staff are working with and their entire kitchens. So it's really like comprehensive process that our certifiers go through to make sure, again, that there's that confidence for any students who are coming and looking for a halal meal. The staff feel confident to say, yes, this is halal, this is for you to eat. And so after we went through that process, which was, quite an intensive process just to get there, we were able to launch halal meals. So as far as we know, our programs here in Southern Maine were the first third-party certified halal meals in a K-12 public school system, which we're really proud and excited about. And that launched in April of 2024 in many of our school districts. And so we started with sort of a pilot program with one school in each of the 3 districts that we were working in. And we chose that approach so that we could really make sure that staff were confident, the program was going smoothly. Our trainers, such as Khadija, could go in and provide that one-on-one support that staff needed, and really work out any kinks that were happening. And then since that happened, we've been able to roll out to entire school districts and make sure that students have halal daily options available. So every single day, the kids can go into the cafeteria and know that there will be something for them to eat. And as Hamza said, these meals are available to any kids in the school. So any kids who are just looking for some variety in their school lunch are able to choose the halal meals. And then the last piece of our puzzle, which is really ongoing, is the school and family outreach. And so this looks like a lot of different things. It looks like going to schools and running taste tests in their cafeteria so that students are able to try the halal options and are educated about what halal means and know that it's available for all of them to eat. It looks like running a Halal School Meals Club in a high school so that students are able to promote the meals and give feedback and be that student voice and advocate. We are at family events. We're going to multilingual back to school nights and presenting. We're really making ourselves a presence in the community so that we can ensure that, we're not just sort of dropping these meals and hoping that they work. We're really making sure that we're listening to the students and families who are accessing these meals and relying on the meals and making sure that we can make them the best we possibly can and really meet the needs of the community. So that is a bit about our process. And I want to dive a little more deeply into our community engagement because I think this is what is so core to our mission and the way that we run this program. Our program is run out of the nonprofit Food for All Services in Portland, which is a halal food pantry and African market. So it's very embedded within the community, and we want to make sure that this program stays that way. As I mentioned, we launched after identifying the need for this, but before going to the schools and doing the training and the certification, we met with a number of families and local leaders in the Muslim community to learn about how they wanted to see halal meals implemented. And that was why we decided to go with third-party certification instead of just kind of hoping that the schools would be able to do it on their own, because we heard from parents that that was really key to them to build trust for the program and to make sure that they felt okay with their kids eating the food. And so that initial focus group that we did really guided how we started the program. But we've kept up with family forums, being present at parent-teacher conferences and community events. And then we've also really made sure that we're keeping those leaders, those local leaders from the Muslim community very involved in the project. So leaders who families trust and are listening to. We're actually having on Monday one of them come into the school and eat lunch with the students and talk to them about the halal meals so that they can sort of vouch for them to the families they work with and say, like, I've seen the kitchen, I've tried the food, it's really good, your kids should eat it. So really making sure that they're both guiding us in our work and the choices we're making, and then also they're kind of acting as that cultural broker to families to show them that they can trust the meals and really, build up that trust between the school food service department and the families who are accessing the meals, because we found that's just a super key piece of this work. And in addition to talking with families and getting parental trust, we know it only goes so far what parents tell their kids to do, and we really have to have the students engaged. And so I talked a little bit about what that looks like, but I just want to dive in a bit more deeply. We've been really lucky to work with Food Corps and have Food Corps school nutrition specialists placed in each of our 3 districts, and that gives us incredible capacity to actually work with students and engage with them in a really hands-on way. And so we've run regular internships in the 3 districts that we work in. And in these internship programs, students learn all about school meals. They learn all about the National School Lunch Program, school breakfast program, what the requirements of the Federal Nutrition Program are. They learn about surveying and data analysis and all of those kind of nitty-gritty details, and then they actually create a survey to go out to their peers about their needs and wants for school nutrition. And we run this multiple times in these different districts, and it's really guided us in knowing what the dietary needs and wants are, what different menu items students might want to see. We can always guess what students might want to see on the menu, but sometimes we're actually surprised when they tell us what it is that they want to eat, and we never would have guessed this. So we've really found there's not much we can do without first doing this surveying and having those interviews with students. And again, we can go out and ask them what they want. They might tell us one thing. If we have their peers going out and asking them what they want, we found they're a lot more honest and upfront. So having that sort of like peer-to-peer connection through those high school internship programs has been key. And then again, we make sure that we're present in the cafeteria, that we don't just sort of like put a sign up that says, here are halal meals without explaining to students what they are. So anytime meals launch in a school, we are setting up a table in the cafeteria and we're talking to students who know about a halal diet, who might observe a halal diet, and explaining, how we ensure that the meals are halal. And we're also talking to students who have never heard the word halal before and explaining what these meals are, encouraging them to try them and have a conversation with their peers. So it's really, again, doing that education and then encouraging that peer-to-peer conversation. And we're also in middle schools and elementary schools, not so much with the internships, but doing advisory meetings, getting feedback from students, having focus groups. Again, really just encouraging that buy-in and agency for students in their school food experience. We found that students are much more likely to eat school lunch and be excited about it and try the halal meals if they're able to give their feedback and have their voices heard, and we incorporate that feedback into what we're doing. And so all of this sort of culminates into our halal quality management teams, which exist at every high school where we have halal meals. And these are sort of our like absolute student rock star leaders who are promoting the meals, making videos and posters and trying them, giving feedback. They're sort of the ambassadors to make sure that student standards are being met with the halal meals. So, there's sort of a few different prongs of this program, and obviously the food piece, making sure we have those halal standards met, is such a big one, but we know it can't happen without the community and student buy-in and support for this program, and for those partners and stakeholders to feel like their needs are being met and their voices are being heard. So I want to speak a little bit about what we've learned from doing this work over the last several years. I think when we started out, we assumed, people might not know what halal is. Maybe they've heard it, maybe not. And we realized there were a lot of misconceptions about what it would look like to have halal meals in schools, and that we really needed to invest quite deeply in the education that we were doing, both with the nutrition staff, but also with community members who were hearing that it was going to be implemented, with teachers who were hearing this from students, and really make sure that all across the community, people understood what halal foods were, why they were being served, and also that they were available for all students. Really, we've put up posters everywhere, sort of encouraging halal is for all. And then we also are really working for local halal meat to be more accessible. And so we're big advocates for the infrastructure investments that are needed to sustain local halal proteins across the state of Maine. And then we also want everyone to be thinking about what is needed to bring food equity to their community. And we know this is a really key piece in our community, and it's also part of a much larger picture. And there's a lot of work that we all need to be active participants in, and building those relationships and trust and advocating for school food staff to, be recognized and appreciated, so that we can really build a thriving school food system that has equity for all from all vantage points. So we really encourage all of you to think about what this might look like in your community. What are the needs that exist in your community to expand equity and access, especially when we're thinking about school meals and other nutrition programs? Because we know, the Food Research and Action Center has a lot of statistics around just how key school meals are to food security for students. So we want to think about, what are those needs? Why might students not be having their needs met through school meals and other nutrition programs? And what barriers and opportunities might we see to meeting this need? So with that in mind, I want you to think about those, and then we want to open it up to all of you to hear if you have any questions about what we've presented here or thoughts to this about like what are those opportunities to build food equity in your community. So Khadija, I'll hand it over to you for some Q&A time.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm Khadija. I think when we have this presentation, people are they are so stuck to that place where they're like, will this question be dumb? Will this question be something silly? There is no such thing as stupid question. Every question is a good question. Please feel free to ask any if you have one, and if you don't have one, I guess, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Minerva. First, kudos and thank you for this presentation. I learned a lot, actually, and I appreciate it very much. I actually did put a few questions in the Q&A, but I figured I'd just ask them. I have a few. So one is, are all halal certifications the same? I don't know, maybe I'll just ask all my questions and then you guys can discuss. Are you finding take up of the halal meals from non-Muslim students? I'm just curious how that's going. And also there's a perception, I know whenever we talk about this, there's a perception that halal meals are more expensive. And are you finding that that's true or not? So those are just my first three questions. Thank you.
So I'm gonna start with the third one. No, not all the halal certification are the same. They are different because they are different sects of Islam and people hold their faith differently. As we are different color-wise, faith also is like that. They can all be Muslim and certain people feel like it should be zabiha, that means this animal should be hand slaughter, or it should simply be halal, which also means just someone prayed on that animal before they slaughter it, or how the animal was raised. There are a lot of criteria. That's why we went with a third-party certifier to make sure that we're meeting almost everyone need. Now, we cannot meet everybody need because, you know, people being people in, but we've been trying to make sure that we're reaching everybody need. And the perception that halal meal is more expensive, that is true. It is more expensive because we don't have, like here in Maine, we don't have enough slaughterhouse to sustain the need. But with the work that we've been doing with the school partner and finding new vendors and working with our partner Ifanka, we've been able to find sourcing for these halal products and making sure that the prices are still what the school needs to spend. And sometimes we even find cheaper. It's just about looking for it. And that's where the real work lies, in just finding the vendor that will be able to sell you at that price. And most vendors too, once we approach them and let them know of our mission, they are more than happy to lower their prices so they can have students have access to that food. And your third question was, are you finding
the non-Muslims taking the meals?
Oh yeah, they're loving that stuff. They're loving it. That's the beauty of children now. I personally feel like my generation and the generation before me, everybody was just like, this is my circle. I'm staying here. I don't want to know anything that doesn't, it's not my business. But these children that we are raising, they are so open. They are looking at the world differently. And thank you to TikTok, they want to eat fufu. They want to eat all this stuff that normally they didn't have access to, and they ask for it at school. I'll go to these schools and they're asking me, I'm like, yo, I don't think your director of nutrition will agree for us to cook this type of meals, but they want to try new food. And from my perspective, there isn't anything we can do that is better than this. Open our children to the prospect that life is big. The world is big. There are multiple cultures, there are multiple flavors, and you can start here at home right now and then expand later on. So when you travel in the world, you are not like, halal, what do you mean halal? It's already available. I know halal, I was having it at school, and they're just so excited. And also, kids just want to have a burger with their friends. They don't really want to be on the side and being weird and being different from the other children. They just want to be with their friend. So when we offer halal, they all go for what their friends are picking. So we're finding out now that everybody just wants the same thing and they all want halal. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we're looking for when we're talking about having an equitable way of serving our kids and teaching them that we all are equal?
We have another question from Ruby.
Oh, Khadija, can I just quickly add on to that? Something else that we found in terms of just like the cost and expanding it to more students who maybe aren't necessarily observing a halal diet, is there's also really great crossover between what would be like vegan and vegetarian and halal. So we are really trying to get meat options because that is what students want. And we do have meat options available, and those are probably the most popular options. But we've also been able to serve things like veggie burgers and tofu and rice and chickpeas and rice and all those sorts of things as halal as well. So those are not more costly items because they're also vegetarian and vegan. And then we've gotten a lot of excitement from students who are maybe not following a halal diet but are vegan and vegetarian who are really pleased to see those items on the menu. And then they also have a halal sticker on them, which is great.
And to add to that, one more thing we had found out with doing halal was we were able to actually certify all the vegan meals at the school that we are working with and all the vegetarian meal that they were serving previously. Because when we say vegetarian, we just think it has no animal byproduct, or vegan, it's just vegetable. But with the food industry, for example, when we're talking about lysine as one of the ingredients that Hamza has spoken about, that is from human hair. Like, why is human hair in bread? Why are we eating that, and why are we feeding that to the next generation? So we were able to go there and remove all these ingredients. So now when they're serving bread, it is plain bread. It doesn't have any animal byproducts in it. So the vegan population, the vegetarian have access to that now that they didn't have previously, although the school thought that they had it. The school thought that it was vegetarian or it was vegan. Now they know, after working with us, that these ingredients are actually not vegetarian and vegan, and they were able to up their game and make it more accessible with better ingredients. Ruby, are they separate prep station, oven, halal meal? What happens if the food get mixed? Oh, yeah, that's a big one. But again, because we are such a small team and because we work so close to the kitchen staff, we were able to really cater every need of every kitchen. Not all kitchens are the same. Not every district doesn't have the same amount of money. Not every kitchen looks the same. So we go in the kitchen and we talk to the staff and we make the best decision we can. Normally, we prefer for everything that is halal to have their own oven, their own station, but that's not the reality. So the conclusion has been, if you're going to cook something that is halal, you start with the halal burger first, then you cook the next thing. And these staffs are pro at their job. They know how to clean. They treat it the same way we treat allergen. So they will go in, prepare halal, come back, clean, and then go back to the next thing. It hasn't been as easy, but once they get into doing it, they realize that it's something that they can do. So for the kitchen that can afford it, yes, they have their own oven, like Westbrook has their own halal oven. And for the kitchen that can't afford it, we just make do by learning how do we separate the item, how do we make sure that there is no cross-contamination during prep or during cooking or even during serving, because we also still need to separate the meal when they are being served to keep once our students from being confused, and second, to give our staff enough support and to give them enough encouragement to do what they can do, what they know how to do best, without having doubt in the process.
Yeah, and I think like Khadija was saying, it is so different what each district is able to do. So in some districts, like you were saying in Westbrook, they're able to have, you know, a separate oven and space. But for other districts, that might look like preparing all the meals at once at the beginning of the day in a central kitchen, sealing them, making sure there's no cross-contamination, no possibility for the food to get mixed, and sending them to the schools. So just that as an example of like how different school nutrition programs can look with how they're preparing meals.
Is there any federal funding, or is it all state, local, nonprofit?
It is all state, local, nonprofit. There is no federal funding for that work. We do wish there was federal funding, but not at the moment. We are still applying, we're looking for funding, but it's mostly just us wanting to do this work. I'm a parent, I have children in school. I want my kid to have access to these meals, so it's just volunteering our time and really caring for our community and just giving a voice to the less fortunate and just doing the best we can. Hopefully there will be funding for it one day, but if there isn't funding for it, we're still going to be out here fighting for the right of everyone.
Khadija, there was also a question from Aaliyah earlier in the chat where she asked, curious to know if you ever encountered any stigma surrounding halal among students, or has it always been met with open-mindedness and curiosity?
Oh no, Islamophobia is a thing. It's a huge thing, and also food is so attached to people's identity that often when you're coming and trying to change things, people feel attacked. So it's always been there and it's still there. We do our best to try and explain why this matters, why this is important. We do our best to try and explain that just because it's not for you doesn't mean it's against you. Things can be not for you. It really isn't taking anything away from you. So once they understand that, things get better. But yeah, there are a lot of children who really don't know because the parents don't know. If the parents don't know, they're teaching their children stuff that are not true. And again, part of this work is also to change minds and show our community that we just people like you, and children of color need as much as other children. And we know for sure that children of color are asked and are expected to perform twice as well as the other kid. And if they're doing that hungry, how are they achieving their goal? So as a mother of Black children, what is my role here? What do I stand for, and how do I explain that food is love? And really it's not for a group of students, but for all students. And also what we are offering is for the betterment of the whole community.
Are there any other final questions in our last couple of minutes? I will put our email in the chat. We're always happy to talk no matter where you are. If you're interested in implementing a similar program, we're always happy to just chat more and share our experience and talk about what might work in your community. So I'll drop that in the chat. Khadija or Hamza, any last challenges or successes or exciting pieces of this program that you want to share out?
No, I think this has been a good experience for us all. And in regards to our program, I think we've made a lot of progress in really a short time. In terms of facing the stigmas, we've gone from people being skeptical about the meals in a particular school district to literally everybody wanting to eat halal school meals. So we've made a lot of social progress as well as nutritional progress. And thank you all for the opportunity to speak here.
Yeah, thank you all so much for listening to our presentation and having us here to speak. We're really grateful to get to connect with others who are excited and doing such important food security work around the country. So it's, yeah, really special to share this space with you all. And Khadija, any last words from you?
No, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any question or you thought about something else. We are always available, and if you needed just more information, we have our website, and or if you choose to talk to the food directors, not to volunteer their time, but I know every and each food director we've been working with are so proud of this program that they will be willing to talk to you and explain how this experience has been for them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you so much, Abby. I will turn it back over to you just to wrap up the session.
Okay, well, thank you. I want to thank all of our speakers. This was super interesting. Up next, you can choose one of 3 sessions. To join one of the 3 sessions, click Agenda in your navigation bar to the left of your screen. Be sure to click the right arrow to scroll through all of the available sessions. And that concludes our time together. Thank you so much. Have a great day.